Hi, I'm Jacob Suggs, and you're watching Unscripted. So Unscripted is basically going to revolve around the idea if I were walking up to a production company and had to pitch an idea off the top of my head to them for a script, screenplay, film, graphic novel, whatever. And basically what I'm about to ramble to you guys now about is my idea for a certain script, screenplay, etc. And that's how this series is going to play out. But we're going to have a series of sketches and some images and stuff in between, so it won't just be me rambling the whole time, so don't worry. I got you covered. So, that being said, let's kick things off with the very first screenplay script pitch that I have in my head that I would send to DC Comics and Warner Brothers. So I really love the character of Superman, and I started thinking of an idea about how I would kill Superman as I recently kind of reread and re-skimmed through The Death of Superman, which I really enjoy, as well as A World Without a Superman. I didn't even bother reading Return of Superman / Reign of Superman because, between you and me, I'm not that big of a fan of it. Okay? Okay. So our story begins in Metropolis, 3 months after the death of Superman. Great way to start a Superman story. I know. Hold your thank yous. But this little 12-year-old boy is looking at this giant monument, the giant S on Superman's chest. It's a giant monument, a giant S, honoring the loss of Superman. This little boy is just looking up in awe and amazement at it when a man with black hair and a brown coat comes up and stands beside him. And in between this time, we basically have the little boy and them talking about what makes a hero, and the little boy is like, I really think he's still out there. He really meant a lot to me. Superman meant something to me, just like everybody else. And we have this little conversation between these two characters, and the man in the brown coat just kind of smiles at him and begins to walk away as he has to go get groceries or do whatever, an excuse, you know what I mean, to get away. And this little boy turns around at him and goes, mister, I didn't catch your name. The man in the brown coat turns around, looks at the boy, and makes a grin. And he goes, Clark Kent. Act 1. Act 1. Here we go. Now, before I continue, I do want to bring up the Justice League, because that kind of is a pivotal thing. The Justice League in my world has formed, and they are a thing, but they're not as tight and as close as, say, the Avengers are, or as they are in, the Justice League television show. There's no real watchtower or anything like that where they meet up. They just kind of assemble when, a character like Darkseid comes down with parademons, or, an alien comes down to invade Earth. They only assemble when something big like that happens. I just wanted to point that out because it's going to come in handy much later when I talk about something else. Alright, now you're ready to continue. So, our story actually begins 3 months before this event, in that Superman's still alive. He's flying around doing Superman things. He's saving burning buildings, cats out of trees. I don't know, Superman stuff. You know what? Saving tanker boats from, releasing oil into the ocean and stuff like that. He's flying around. He's basically being the Superman that we know and love. And, essentially, he's living the double life that we know Superman lives. Clark Kent, journalist at the Daily Planet, and Kal-El of Krypton, or Superman. Well, he's realizing that he's having a rough time balancing out both of his lives. Kind of like Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, but not like Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2. Even though that was a great superhero film, and I can't deny that. Well, he's having a hard time balancing things out. And he's realizing that one life is a little bit easier for him to live than the other. Because Superman wants to be like you and me. He wants to be human. But the thing is, he can't be, and that's why he chose to be Superman and Clark Kent, to balance that out. But he didn't realize the struggle that was going to come with that. So, now we have this conflict going on internally inside of Superman, while he's saving the world and going off for interviews. So, perhaps he's doing an interview for the Daily Planet somewhere. And he's interviewing someone. And hears cries for help out of his ear, because his hearing is going to be a pivotal part of the story. Because Superman can hear things all around the world. Well, he hears cries for help. But he can't go save those people. He's Clark Kent now. Same goes for Superman. We see a scene to where Superman's saving people from a burning building. And although he can carry people and stuff like that, he carries a few people out as he flies through and puts them on the ground. And right when he turns around to save everybody else, the building collapses before Superman can react. I need to bring up that Superman's only been around for a few years now. So the world's accepted Superman by this point. But he's not fully, entirely the Superman that we know and love. Superman's still finding stuff about himself in this process as well. Well, the building collapses, and it's literally going to be like one scene or one panel thing. And out of one ear, Superman hears cries of joy. Like, thank you, Superman, you're the best! You saved us, you're our hero that we need! You are Superman. Okay. Out of the other ear, however, he hears something that he doesn't want to hear. Screams of pain and death as the people are crushed under the weight of this collapsing building. And inside, that hurts his struggle more and more. So much so that Superman that night comes to a point. He thinks and ponders so much and realizes something. He can't continue being both Clark Kent and Superman. It's time for him to pick one life or the other. So things are going great for Clark Kent, right? He's having a relationship with Lois Lane. His journalism is like skyrocketed and things are going great. Superman's viewed in a positive light too, but as Clark Kent, he's living a much better life, and I think that's important to address. Now, like I said, that night he comes to a choice where he has to come up between one life or the other. And with that being said, he flies to LexCorp in his Superman attire to LexCorp to talk with Lex Luthor. And Lex Luthor's not an all bad guy. In fact, he's played by Tom Hanks in my script. And when you see him, you don't expect him to be like this bad guy. You look at him and he looks like a legit businessman with a plan, and he knows what to do. And he looks friendly, but when he does something evil later on or something, yeah, he just becomes a totally different person. And I think that'd be cool to address. So, anywho, Superman lands in LexCorp, right? Just like, poof, like straight in LexCorp. And Lex Luthor is in his office, like he's looking at the skyline of Metropolis, and he turns around and looks at Superman, and he's like, so what do I do this time? You know what I mean? Like, what the heck are you doing here? And Superman looks at him and he goes, you know what? I actually have a proposition for you. And Lex is like, oh, well, what do you want me to do? You and I don't get along. What do you want me to do? And Superman looks at him and he goes, I want you to kill Superman. Now, obviously, Lex is very, very much taken off by this. He's like, wait, what? Excuse me? Did you just ask me to kill you? And Superman's like, well, let me explain. I don't want you to literally kill me. I want you to metaphorically kill me. So much so that the world, the entire world, not just America, the world, thinks that I'm dead. And if you do that, I can assure you, I will stay out of your way as long as I can. Probably forever. You just have to do this one thing for me. And Lex just kind of laughs and he's like, you're such a coward. Why would you do this? And Superman's like, because I realized something. Maybe it's time for Superman to take a step back. Maybe Superman has been a part of the world for so long as Superman. Maybe Superman doesn't need to be part of the world anymore. Maybe I, as someone else, need to be part of the world and explore my own life. I can't go on doing this forever. Serving the world, it's an obligation. I don't have to save the world. But I do it anyway because it's what these people need. But now, thinking on some recent things, I just don't know if I can do that anymore. And Lex is like, well, how do I know I can trust you? And Superman's like, really, brah? Really? Really? Really, dude? I mean, I'm Superman. And after that, he looks at his hand, and we hear Lex's heartbeat. And Superman goes, do you see this hand? I could shove it through your chest and kill you before your next heartbeat, and you wouldn't even know you were dead. But I'm not going to do that because it's not the right thing to do. If you can trust me enough that I won't kill you right now, you can trust me for anything as simple as that. And Lex is like, you know what? Fair enough. So the two sit down at a table. They have a meeting, though we don't really know what they're talking about. And before Superman gets up and flies away, Lex looks at him and goes, when do you want me to do this? And Superman goes, surprise me. And flies off into the night sky as Lex sits there with a stern face. By this point in time, Superman's essentially given up. Something we really haven't seen Superman do. I mean, I guess you could say in Superman Returns, he flies away, but he went in search of Krypton. He didn't give up on the world. He comes back and continues being Superman. In this story, Superman gives up being Superman for a life as Clark Kent. He doesn't know if Superman's ever going to come back. He just knows he wants to live as Clark Kent, to continue his relationship with Lois, to try to live as close as a normal life as he can, because he's already lived a normal life on the Kent farm with his parents. So we skip a few weeks later. Superman's still doing Superman stuff, right? He's still flying around saving cats out of trees. And essentially, it's a bright, beautiful day in Metropolis. Like, it's a gorgeous day. Unlike outside my house, where it's raining, and you can probably hear the rain, and it's bad. It's not good. It's pretty gloomy. But anywho, that's beside the point. The point is, it's a beautiful day in Metropolis. And Superman's flying around, and he flies above the earth and starts listening for crimes and stuff happening when he hears a really high-pitched noise mixed with the frequency of a scream, and he doesn't know what to think about it, so being Superman, he wants to investigate. So Superman flies from Earth down into this, like, building, and all of a sudden everything around him just, like, seals down, like doors, just, like seal off. And Superman looks down and sees, like, a radio transmitter thing emitting the sound, and he picks it up and crushes it in his hands. And when he looks up, there are cameras all around Superman in this room, just looking down at him. Now, Lex Luthor isn't an idiot. So Lex Luthor is entirely somewhere else by this point. And Lex Luthor is hacking into his own satellites, as well as Mr. Wayne's satellites, and everybody else's, basically. And before you know it, on every laptop, tablet, phone, television, there's footage of Superman surrounded by these cameras in this isolated room. And all of a sudden, Superman realizes, is this it? Red light shines down on Superman, which, if you didn't know, is the light of Krypton. Krypton had a red sun. So his cells are already weakened, and Superman's basically one of us now. And before we know it, kryptonite gas just shoots up from these vents in this room and starts to fill up the room. And Lois, by this point, watching this in the Daily Planet, knows what she has to do. She makes a phone call to her father, General Lane, as they're already tracking Superman's location to try to help Superman, because by this point they know Superman needs us ASAP. He gives his daughter the coordinates, and Lois is running now watching this, right? To get a taxi or something to this, like, building. And Lex is watching this too, is, like, fingers crossed, maybe cracking his knuckles or something, I don't know. But, essentially he's just sitting there. Superman collapses to the ground and starts coughing. And Superman's like, is this it? Am I going to die? I know I planned this out, but what if I actually don't make it? And Superman continues coughing. Lois is in the taxi going around. The military's running in with a SWAT team, getting ready to bust into this location, when Superman coughs something. It's going to be dark. It's going to be rough. As Superman coughs up blood, it splatters onto the ground, and the world is watching. This is the first time Superman has ever bled anywhere. No one has seen this before. It's new. And people are like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Lois sees it, and she's just, like, really taken off by it. Even Lex Luthor, who planned this thing out, is in shock. We cut to the Kent farm, and the parents are sitting there, Ma and Pa Kent, and they don't know what to think either. And Superman sees it, and it's a shocking revelation to him as well. So yes, Batman, Superman does bleed. You're welcome, Ben Affleck. But eventually, Superman's collapsing and coughing and going dizzy, and he sees everything fade into black and white. His life begins flashing before his eyes with memories on the Kent farm and stuff like that, him getting his job. And before we know it, Superman collapses to the ground, unresponsive. A SWAT team kicks their way in, holding their weapons, runs towards Superman and vents out the room, and look at him on the ground. Blood near his mouth and on the ground. And Lois runs in tears, picks up Superman in her arms, and begins crying. Superman, to the world, is now dead. I also want to mention real quick that in this sad, depressing scene, Lex Luthor has a guy come up and wipe up the blood from the ground and keep it. Keep that in mind. I have a feeling that's going to come in handy just a little bit later. Just a little bit. You can cut it now. Okay, so Act 2. Lex Luthor has got the blood of Superman, and Superman to the world has died. So we have this giant funeral going on for Superman. Outside the world, they have the monument built now of like the giant S that we saw at the beginning. Everyone's sad, everyone's crying, there are cannons booming, stuff like that. The president's on the television like we mourn the loss of Superman. And around the world, people are like mourning the loss of Superman. But I'm going to use the same plot device, the one that everybody hated, that was in Return of Superman. And Superman's not really dead. Superman was unconscious. But if you know anything about Superman, you know that Kryptonians go into a healing coma. Everybody hated it, but here, hopefully, it will work because he's not really dead, guys. He wanted to fake the death. So much that it fooled the world, but so much it was faked so well that it fooled Superman himself, too. And Lex is pretty proud of that. So much so that with the blood, he created a lifeless clone of Superman, and that's what's buried now in this thing. The real Superman already awoke 3 days, or after like a few days in the morgue and flown away, right? He's not there anymore. Clark Kent's back at his apartment. The world's mourning the loss of Superman. You know, everyone's sad. Everyone's extremely sad. Superman's dead. So cannons are booming, but there's a little church off to the side. And inside this church are like Superman's closest friends. So we have like Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, or maybe not Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, basically some members of the Justice League. But not Batman. Batman's over here like brooding outside because he's like, this isn't right. Something's up. Because you know it's the Warner Brothers movie. I'm Batman. Anywho, so he's outside brooding. But everyone's sad. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen are in here in tears. They're sad. They're crying. And all of a sudden, the doors to this just swing open. Swings open. And Lex Luthor walks inside. Lois gets extremely mad, runs up to Lex and starts hitting him on the chest like, this is what you wanted, wasn't it? He's dead now. Are you happy? And Lex hugs Lois Lane and says, as hard as it may be to believe, I have a feeling it's what he would have wanted. So the two are hugging out. Batman's all like, and zooms off to go study some stuff in the Batcave. And real quick about Batman, because now we're talking about Batman. Well, actually, since we're talking about Batman, give me like 1 second. Okay, just 1 second. I promise it'll be worth it. So anywho, we're talking about Batman. How did Batman find out about Clark Kent being Superman? Well, it's very simple. Bruce Wayne has numerous satellites around and stuff, right, in space. Well, he used those satellites right when Superman first showed up to try to track Superman's flight patterns. And he found out that in the end, Superman mainly flies to two places at the start and end of every day. The Daily Planet and this small little apartment building, which he finds an apartment in that building belongs to a Clark Kent. That exact building is where Superman's going, that exact apartment in that building. And Clark Kent also works at the Daily Planet. And that being said, that's how this amazing guy, the world's greatest detective, found out that Superman was really Clark Kent. So Batman knows, but does Superman know Batman's identity? No. Why? Because, well, Batman kind of has some lead in his cowl, and Superman can't see through lead. So Superman has no idea that Bruce Wayne is under here. That being said, we're done talking about Batman and back to the main story with Superman, so I'm just going to take this off, and now we can continue our proper story. So that being said, let's just go back to Superman now. And I also want to bring up, before we entirely get back to Superman, that Superman wasn't killed by Doomsday or anything like that. He was killed by green kryptonite gas. Something so simple took down the Man of Steel to the world. That's simple. It doesn't have to be a big brute, and they have to punch the crap out of one another. It can be something as simple as that. So anywho, Clark Kent is back at his apartment, right, and he's packing his stuff because he doesn't want to go to see Lois right away after Superman's been dead for 3 days. He knows that it's fake in there, and Lex knows that he's alive somewhere, but Lex is like, Superman's gone, he's not coming back anytime soon, so what's the point? He said he was going to stay out my way. Superman packs his bags and takes a bus to Smallville, Kansas. the place he needs to go to get his mind back on things. So when he first arrives, we can have kind of like this weird comedic scene and shocking revelation to Jonathan and Martha Kent. Like, you know, like their son's back. Superman died, but Clark Kent's walking up. Superman's dead, but not Clark. And Clark explains what they're doing, and although they're a little bit wishy-washy, Martha Kent's like, you're going to come back one day. I know you don't think that, but you will. And I know you will. And Jonathan's like, son, I'm going to leave it up to you to do the right thing, but is this really the right thing? Is this the thing that you want to do? And Clark's like, just give me some time to think about it. I need some time. I need to be Clark Kent. I don't need to worry about the other guy. And that's exactly what he does for 2 months. Clark's on this farm. He's working for Pa Kent. He's helping out on the farm. He's repressed himself with his powers and is holding back big time. So he's not like flying around like feeding like the cows or something, or like putting stuff in the silo. He's like doing it manually like everybody else would, because he wants to feel normal for once like everybody else. But yet he's still being haunted about Metropolis, and he's still wondering when the right time is to go back to see people like Lois and stuff like that. For all they know at the Daily Planet, Clark Kent basically just gave a leave of absence before leaving. So he's still thinking, when all of a sudden one day a car pulls up. It's Bruce Wayne's. And to Clark, this is like, Bruce Wayne? What? Like, what are you doing here? How do you know me? And then Clark looks at his bone structures and he's like, oh. And Bruce is like, oh. And so the next thing that we see is they're sitting out in the field drinking something. Probably like, I would say something alcoholic, but I think it'd be way more fun if they were drinking like High C punch or something. Just imagine that. Just imagine Superman and Batman just like chugging together a glass of like pink High C fruit juice. Wouldn't that be the most beautiful sight in the world? Anywho, so they're talking and Bruce is like, you need to come back. We need, well, wait, hang on, he's Bruce Wayne. He wouldn't, that was stupid. So, okay, so they're sitting on the farm basically talking, drinking, and Bruce is like, you need to come back. Why'd you do it? And Clark's like, because I don't know if the world needs Superman. Because as of right now, the world has enough Supermen. Think about it. The Flash, Barry, we have Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, we have Aquaman, Arthur, we have John, who's Martian Manhunter, we have you. You don't even have powers and you're a superhero. You sit among us at the Justice League when we need you. When we fight against these aliens, you're still there. Because you're Batman. Anywho, Bruce is like, you're right, but even together, we can't be a team if one of our members isn't there. I knew you weren't dead from the start. I knew something wasn't right, because it felt too planned out. You killed Superman, but Superman's still alive, in here, in everybody's hearts and souls. They remember Superman, and they need Superman. And Clark sits there and he's like, maybe you're right, and I'm sorry, Bruce, I've been here for 2 months. Superman's been gone, people are going to forget about him eventually. And Bruce is like, no, they aren't. None of the members of the League have. We're still struggling to save certain areas at certain times. And without you, we're going to go nowhere. And Bruce leaves, giving Clark just a little boost of confidence to come back. But Clark's still depressed. He's like, I don't know if I want to come back as Superman yet. I was serving the world so much that I felt like it was time to become part of the world. And so what does he do? He finally takes a bus and goes to Metropolis. Now let's actually talk about Metropolis. Because this whole time that Clark's been working on the farm for 2 months, Lex Luthor has realized something. Superman, as much as he hates Superman, Superman is the yin to his yang, the Joker to his Batman. And he really just doesn't know what to do. He's like so torn between these things. So in this process, he already has cloned a lifeless Superman that they buried, right? Well, Lex has been thinking about it because he knows that Superman may not come back. But either A, he can lure him back in, or B, why not just make a new Superman? And that's exactly what he does. He already has Superman's blood, but he didn't use all of it to create that lifeless replica. He begins cloning a real-life replica, a living replica of Superman. Though some little chinks aren't exactly right, It's mainly the mainframe of Superman. But that's beside the point. So Clark, that's just been happening to the side. So Clark comes up in the bus to back to Metropolis, and the first thing he does is goes to see the monument built in honor of Superman, and just kind of stares at it, and he's like, maybe they were right. But who knows? I don't know. And here's also when he's talking to the boy at the very start of the film / novel. It can be a 10-issue series, or it can be something else. I mean, I don't really care. But, we get that same scene again. And this time it's a little more powerful, now that we know what's going on. Where does Clark go next? To the one person he's nervous about seeing but has to see. His one true love, Lois Lane. So he knocks on Lois Lane's door. And Lois Lane opens the door and she takes a step back and she's in shock. And she's like, "You're a ghost." And Clark takes her hand and she touches him. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" It's revealed that Lois Lane has been drinking, and she's had some problems, and she's had a really rough patch ever since Superman died, because Superman was all she had. Superman was the love of her life, and he's dead to the world. He's dead. And when she sees Clark, she's just like, "What the heck, man? What are you doing?" And so the two have a little scuttle, and things aren't the same. Superman, he wanted to be Clark so bad, but now that he's just Clark, a part of him is missing, and he can't fix that. He's having a really rough time. And things aren't going well at the planet either. They've lost a bunch of stuff. And he's realized that he wanted to make the world a better place without Superman, but now that Superman's gone, it's just becoming a horrible place. And that's not what Superman wants, because as much as he loves his city, he loves the world. And if his city falls apart, then the world's eventually going to fall apart too. And there's only one way to save them, and that's the way that he knows, being Superman. But he doesn't want to do that yet. He's still conflicted on the inside. So what does he do? He goes back to the farm. He's like, I need more time to think about this. And that being said, he goes back to Kent Farm. Part 3. The Return of Superman. So Clark is back on the farm, right? He's still working. He's still conflicted, especially after his visit to Metropolis. But back in Metropolis, something's stirring up. Lex is like 99% done with this like clone of Superman, but there's still little things missing. But Lex can't take it anymore. He needs Superman back in his life. So what does Lex do? He pulls the plug a little bit early. This Superman's not yet fully complete, and neither are his motives. That being said, this thing busts out of the tube and basically goes extremely haywire. So much haywire, like it's shooting lasers, like destroying the city. Completely opposite of what Superman would do. And it's just like flying around. It's Bizarro. It's Bizarro. Not Doomsday, it's Bizarro. This thing is like shooting the city down, like with lasers and stuff. And now we can have our Man of Steel-sized destruction. And what does this destruction bring in? The help of the Justice League without Superman. And this thing basically kicks the Justice League's butt. Wonder Woman defeated, Aquaman defeated, The Flash defeated. All of them are going downhill. All of them are like getting defeated, right? And even Batman, he's like, he doesn't know what to do because he's just a person and he's using his gadgets. But because this thing is like Superman, but kind of has like a rocky skin because it's not fully done, it's a little bit tougher to beat than if they were fighting Superman alone. So these buildings are going around. The Justice League is like really confused because they don't know. Part of them are saving buildings. Part of them are trying to stop this thing. Part of them are trying to evacuate the city. They're very jumbled and disjointed and messy. And their leader, Superman, is dead. And they don't have anywhere to go. And so they fail miserably. They're so torn up on different things that they are basically defeated by the end of this. So back at home, on the farm, Clark is watching this on TV with his parents. And Clark's like, I need to do something. Now's the time. And he realizes something. It's not just an obligation to be Superman. It's a privilege to be Superman. It's a privilege to save the world, to be the hero that these people need. And Clark's like, I need to go get my suit. And Ma Kent stops him. And she says, I told you this from the start. I told you that you were going to come back one day, whether you liked it or not. You were going to realize that the world needed you, after all. And so, I've been working on something for you. Now, when Superman returns in other stories, he comes back in an all-black suit. Not my Superman. My Superman, Ma Kent, has been working on this project for a while, and gives Superman an all-white suit. The boots are white, the suit is white. The S would be either black or red. I haven't made up my mind yet on that, but it would have like a white cape. The whole suit would basically be white, right? Because, you know, Gandalf returned in white, so we can kind of get our Superman is Gandalf. I mean, maybe not that, but, you know, mainly when heroes return and stuff, they return in all white, not in all black. Which I think is a cool contrast, but at the same time, it would be really cool to see Superman in a white suit. Just, seriously, just imagine it. It would be really tight. So Metropolis is being disjointed. Buildings are collapsing. It's like Man of Steel, but like 10 Man of Steels. Like, these buildings are just like collapsing left and right. Like, bombs, like, buildings are exploding, stuff like that. And Luthor's just like, oh, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? He's like really in shock. Like, he's evacuating LexCorp. Things are going haywire. And he's like, I can't lure back in Superman. This is never going to work. What did I do? When all of a sudden, a white flash zooms through the sky, knocks down Bizarro against the ground, and all the cameras focus on it. Just like all the cameras were watching, and the world is once again watching. As Superman has returned in all white and has taken down this monster. The Justice League turns and looks at him. And now, the Justice League is back. Superman's like screaming out orders like, you guys do this, you guys do that, and while he's fighting Bizarro and stuff. And he's taking him down, he's doing cool stuff. But at the same time, now the Justice League, everything's being brought back together. The world's watching, Lois is watching, and a piece of Lois has returned as well. So maybe Lois puts down her drink back on the counter and watches this. Jimmy Olsen and the Planet are watching this. Everyone is watching this. Everyone is watching the return of Superman. There's no Doomsday. Nothing bad is very much happening, except for this explosions and destruction and Bizarro. But it's basically a one-on-one clash between Bizarro and Superman. The anti-Superman and Superman. So, in a way, Superman's fighting this part of him that doesn't want to be Superman. The part that wants to destroy everything that he worked for. Which is why we have Bizarro instead of Doomsday, because Doomsday is just one big giant big brute. But with Bizarro, you can have more of a mirrored character revelation kind of thing going on, and that's why I picked him. Now, I haven't really... Here's the part of the story to where I'm kind of confused on myself. But in the end, I want Batman to say something to Superman like, I'm proud of you. I don't say that a lot. I know that you and I have had trust issues in the past. I know that we've had issues. But I'm proud of you. The Justice League is reassembled. I want Clark to go back to living both lives, and now realizing that there is a way to balance these two out. He's being Superman now, but he's more closer to the Superman that we know and love, because now he's not looking at it as an obligation, but more so as a privilege, previously stated. And there's a lot more narrative things that I would want to talk about here and stuff like that. And eventually, Superman would confront Lex Luthor, and Lex is like, go ahead and take me in, and Superman's like, nah. And Lex is like, what do you mean, no? And Superman's like, because if it weren't for me, I'm the one that got in this mess in the first place. Not you. You just kind of... You did what you had to do. What you thought was right. And so did I. And it just goes to show that Superman is not always right as well. So now he's going with different motives. He's in a different suit. And Superman has returned. Without lifting a giant island of kryptonite in the sky. The movie was bad. But Superman's back. And that is how I would pitch The Death, World Without, and Return of Superman. And my story is called Kent. That's it. K-E-N-T, Kent. That is my Superman pitch that I would pitch to Warner Brothers Pictures or DC Comics if I had the opportunity to. And like I said, there were some narrative things I would want to fix. But for the most part, that is the gist of what I wanted to say. And that's pretty much... I know this video is going to be very long, probably, but in the end, that's really what I wanted to say. And that is how I would pitch a Superman story. And that is my personal idea for the story. The character is trademarked by Warner and DC, but that is how I would pitch the story. Thank you guys so much for watching the very first episode of Unscripted. It means dear and near to me that you guys watch this, and I cannot thank you enough. Click a like below if you like this video, and I will be doing this in the future, And since I've already told you a genre, an idea that I have from a genre that I love, how about I give you guys the opportunity to challenge me next? I will pitch an idea for a genre that you like and vote for in the comments below or on my Twitter feed. So go check that out. Follow me at JTimSuggs and Frame by Frame Film Company on Facebook. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next episode of Unscripted. Thank you so much for hearing my idea for a Superman story, and I will see you guys in the next video. Check out my short film Dystopia on this channel, and I promise in the near future there will be more content. I can't talk. Content to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.